Welcome back, baseball fans, to this Eliminating the Seattle Mariners video. Mariners team finished 14 and 21. They were 14 and 19 a year ago. Yeah, it's just going to be hard to get to 500 when you're playing in the division that has the Oakland A's in their dynasty era, and you're collecting players off of the scrap heap. They do have some nice additions to this team that didn't really play very well, and that kind of hurts when you get a good player and they don't do well for you. It's almost impossible to get to 500 or even think about a wild card spot. Looking at this team, there's some nice performances strewn about. The team batting average 255 is better than a year ago. It was 232. That was progress. Team ERA was 355 last year, down to 389. They have good starting pitching on paper, and they have fairly decent defense to back it up, but it doesn't always translate when you're behind in games, I guess. Gilbreth's first card we used is hit 361. You gotta like that. John Ellis is starting catcher. 283 hitter, not much production otherwise. 4 walks, 27 strikeouts is not nice. Not a lot of homers on this team, just 21 for the entire club, or 4 more than Hank Aaron. Again, there's some nice batting averages in there. Joe Pepitone, nice solid first baseman. Your everyday players are Ellis, Pepitone, and then Bill North, you see, was probably the first round pick, taking him away from Oakland. And frankly, probably did Oakland a favor, because Bill North hit 224 with only a 293 on base, and he always had a nice on base on his card. It just didn't work out at all. 18 stolen bases is nice, but mostly just piling up a stat on a bad team. And then for the pitching, Skip Lockwood went to the All-Star game, but he was hidden as a number 4 starter because he only had to go 53 innings to get a nice ERA like that, and they need a representative for the All-Star game. Dick Woodson had a nice finish. 270 ERA in back-to-back seasons, by the way, which is very good. Segui was the closer with 4 saves and a bad ERA. Jerry Bell, he was acquired in a trade for Dave May as a very long man, a relief 4 starter 7. He had a fantastic year in the bullpen with a 127 ERA. But the most hideous number we're looking at is Steve Klein, a pitcher's card I particularly like as a Yankee. He's got good seasons in 71 and 72. He was okay last year, but this year, as the ace, the 1 starter, 1 and 8 with a 6.38 ERA, how does that even happen? How can you be that horrible? And, you know, you take him off the team, you're 13 and 13. And it's not Steve Klein, it's just horrific luck. That's a pretty decent card. We'll look at his stats in this video at some point. But that's the Seattle Mariners. So you have to eliminate them. And it's always fun to eliminate these expansion teams or teams who didn't exist in the timeline, because they're collecting players from all over baseball. So it's hard to say who they're going to get back a year from now. Who's coming and going. But here's the Seattle's skipjacks, the skippers. And we're going to pull out all their 1971 cards. Drop anchor on these. There we go. So we'll pull out the 8 guys, look at them at the end, and then we're going to look and see who's coming back to the Mariners next year. Who wants to play in Seattle? And it's going to be a common split, 7 and 5. 7 hitters, 5 pitchers. That's a balanced split as for what you don't need an abundance of hitting or pitching. You can split it up in the draft effectively. We'll sort this by position. Okay, we have DH catcher. We have some infielders. Okay, so you have Alou can DH again with this card. That's an excellent card, by the way. 314. Ellis is a decent hitting catcher. Arnold's a decent hitting utility infielder. Can also be backup catcher. Gilbreth would be your third baseman with a high batting average in a limited amount of playing time. But he had 284 and he hit 361 this past year. Danny Thompson. So the Twins did not protect Danny. Unfortunately, Danny passed away as a young man in the 70s. So the Seattle will keep him in their organization until that time. And then the outfield, they have Norm Miller, was a platoon player. Actually hits lefties pretty well. And then there's Bill North. And so this is probably the best player on the team, Bill North. He would have been a 73 Oakland A, getting himself a World Series ring in center field. Also had the second highest batting average on the Oakland team, just behind Reggie. But the fact that he's not on Oakland really helps Seattle. That kind of closes the gap. Could you imagine if they didn't have him at all, and you add another great player to the Dynasty A's? That's not good news at all. And the pitching. There's 5 of them. And you have 2 starters. This Dick Woodson card's pitched well 2 years in a row now. They got it for 1 more year. And look at the ERA, it's funny. This is really hilarious. 2 years ago, he pitched to a 2.70 ERA. This year, he pitched to a 2.70 ERA. And his card has him pitching to a 2.71 ERA. Also, he was 2-2 this year, and he was 14-14. This guy, yeah, I am the most on target of any Strat-O-Matic player with Dick Woodson. I've nailed him for perfection there. Fred Norman, he can't pitch on 3 days of rest because he only had 186 innings with this particular card. Cincinnati Reds might want to come knocking for him, as he would help the Reds on those big Red Machine teams in 75 and 76. They should go get their guy Freddie. Here's that reliever Jerry Bell, had a fantastic year. What a fun card this is. You don't see this very often, folks. A relief 4, starter 7, with nothing but singles and walks on his card. Did it for the Brewers. Consider him a Seattle pilot, perhaps, even though he wasn't. But 5-1 with a $1.65 ERA in 71 innings. That's a nice little prize there. You can't ask for much more versatility than that. You can go long or go 7 innings in a start. And Skip Pitlock, he's also a relief 4, starter 5, not so good, 4.42 ERA there. And Segui was thrown into the breach at closer when they had nobody else. He's okay. Mostly he's known for getting lefties out more than righties in his career. A nice little year here for the Cardinals in 73. So, you know, that's a nice little array of players here. I think Seattle, the Mariners, were always kind of noted for the hitting more than the pitching in the Kingdom era. This is not the Kingdom era. And this offense does not have bashers at all. They have some nice batting average and a base stealer. But I think you need to keep the starting pitching solidified. So let's take a look at the 8 players from 1971 we pulled out and see who's coming and going, who's being kept, waived, and put on retirement by the Mariners. Alright folks, let's take a look at these 8 Mariner players who's coming and going. We'll begin with Philippe Alou. He had a nice 71. Was playing left field most of the season. He's getting up there, of course. The senior statesman in the family. 288 year in 71, split between Oakland and the Yankees. In 72, he would hit pretty similarly, 278. You could certainly bring him back for a 72 performance. Pretty much the same kind of thing you're going to get as an outfielder. Just a guy, we like to say, for a 278 hitting corner outfielder in this league, because, you know, that's not quite getting you to the All-Star game, but for an expansion team, he could certainly fill out the roster. Also, it also means he qualifies for waivers should you choose to do that with a 37-year-old outfielder. But let's not pile on Philippe. Let's keep him for now. I mean, the observation is that, you know, if a team is that bad, you might not have enough keepers. So we can certainly use, not Matty. We already have Matty. Philippe. We'll join him with a 72 card. All right, next guy, Jerry Devannon. He has a nice card in the middle of the decade here. Let's see if we can get to it. So he was a utility player, came up with Baltimore, I believe, then went to Houston, the National League. And he's all over the place. He can play it for all these teams. Padres, Cardinals, Orioles, Angels, Cardinals again, and the Astros. So in the middle of the decade, He's got a nice card in either 75 or 76 with nice batting average. Some interesting things here. The first thing that comes out is that you cannot put this guy on waivers. To get waivers, you have to have a card in the first season next year, which will be 1972. He didn't play in 72, so you can't put him on waivers. Your options are keeping him, trading him, or retiring him, and then having him come out of retirement. You don't have so the only eligible card that's worth pulling out of retirement or keeping would be the 75 card with the Astros, if it exists. So let's go check that out. I'm gonna have to go into Super D's site, Gary's roster page. He's got all the Strat-O-Matic rosters here. I got to go look at the 75 original, not the reprint, the 75 original. Here we go. It'll always say the following year up here. So it says 76 for the year you're playing these cards, but it's the 75 season. And we are looking again for the stats. Make sure we have a Jerry Devanin card playing for the Astros with this nice little performance. Let's take a look at that. Houston. Do we have a problem, Houston, or not? He's not listed as one of their regular players. He should be an extra player. Cross our fingers here for Houston. Cosgrove, Helms, Jutsey, and Milbourne. No. See that? They didn't make his card. We'll look in the addendum here. Nope, no sir. That is a little disappointing for this team. So no Jerry Devanin, which means it was 70, the Astros, right? Let's look at the 76. It's probably the 76 Devanin they made. Going to go look at this one, which is the following year of 77 there. We'll go down to Houston, and we'll look at these extra players. And there he is. Devanin, 76. So what they did was, let's go back to his original stats now. Strat-O-Matic, for some reason, they didn't print his stats appearing in 32 games and 114 at-bats in 75. But they did make his card appearing in 61 games and 130 at-bats. And a slightly statistically better season. 290, 408, 402, 810. So that card will be available, but unfortunately not at the moment. Because remember, it's a 4-year carryover league, so it's 72, 73, 74, and 75. We know 75 doesn't exist, and these performances are terrible, so he has to go in retirement. That's a shame they can't continue him on. Devanin's got to be retired. And then the year after, in the year 2025, in that draft, someone will pluck him, because that's a nice little performance here with a 76 card. 290, 810 OPS. Yeah, that's nice. All right, 2 down now. Let's go to Jim LaFay, longtime Dodger. Also, Joe LaFay is in the same timeline. So Jim LaFay, Dodger from 65. His entire career was with the Dodgers. He's got one more year next year, hitting just 201 with it. Well, we probably can give him waivers. But we're going to have to go back to the 72 and see if they made his card for the Dodgers. They probably did with that many at-bats. He's not listed there. How about the extra players? Yeah, there he is. So for Los Angeles Dodgers, LaFay is indeed an extra player card we have for the season of 72. So we can give him waivers versus retirement. And as a utility infielder, he might have a good platoon, he might be versatile, he might have good defense, so you don't want to eliminate him from the league just because he hit 201. You might have some usefulness. So we'll just put Jim LaFay on waivers. And they have 1-1-1 this far. Next guy, Joe Pepitone. Really fun card. Played on some famous clubs, the Yankees and Cubs, I believe, right? So yeah, he's a Yankee through the 60s. Then he ends up with the Cubs. Nice fun little career for this guy. Gold Glove winner, All-Star MVP. Curious about his postseason batting, folks? Let's go take a quick peek at that. I'm wondering. Here we are. So yeah, he would be on the World Series teams that lost to the Dodgers and Cardinals. Didn't do very well. And that answers that question. Same result, 154 in each performance. Well, maybe that's why the Yankees didn't win those World Series. Sorry, Joe, but yeah, that just didn't work out for Joe Pep there. Anyway, let's go take a look here. Had some nice performances. He had the 27 homers, 26 homers. He hit 307 with a card we just had. Now we are approaching 72 and 73. 72 cards should exist for the Cubs. 262, 309, 397, 706 is just kind of ordinary. 73 has a 276 batting average. Certainly I don't want to consider retiring him just yet. He probably can get waivers with a 72 card. I'm going to take a look. 72 with the Cubs. Does he exist? 72 Cubs? Let's go check it out. Should. Pepitone, yeah, he's there. Let's start him out as a keeper because he's been on the Mariners since the 69 card was used, 78, 71. Let's keep him on keeper. But because the performance is not that great, let's consider maybe moving him over if we find we have more guys we want to put on the keeper list. Next guy is Ron Woods. Ron Woods, nice little performance here in 71. Let's see if he can do it again. He was an Expo in 71 here. The card we get, he was given the Expo card and a 297 average. So they helped him out here slightly. They didn't add those 32 at-bats with the Yankees, which would have brought his average down. They printed this card, which is good news for the Expos, the 297, 795 card. He exists in 72 and a full season in 73. Numbers are pretty ordinary, but 10 home runs and a 425 slugging in 72, that's pretty good. He's always been a platoon player. Assuming he's got a good platoon, and he's got he should have a 72 card with the Expos with that amount of plate appearances. We'll just double check though. He's right here. R. Woods. So let's make him a keeper. Again, all three of these guys are just guys at this moment. Alou, Pepitone, and Woods. They're all just kind of guys. But again, it's Seattle, so they could use guys. But we would like to find some locks. We would really like to get some lock keepers who they're, stud players that they really like. We're going to take a look now at Steve Klein, who had just a horrendous year with a pretty darn good card. This Steve Klein was a Yankee. And 71 and 72, he had good years both times. And 70, see, look at his start. At ages 22, 3, and 4. Look at that performances, folks. So, yeah, to me, he's the best player here. Look at the ERA. It goes down to 240. And he wins 16 games with a 107 whip. So, yeah, he's the star. And think about that. So, we played this card, right? The 109 whip card. We just played this one. You saw the stats earlier in this video. He was 1-8 with a 640 ERA in plenty of innings, by the way. It was like 80 innings, so we got a nice chunk sample there, and he bombed. So let's hope he can be comeback player of the year, huh? Mariners going to need this guy to produce. Steve Klein. Next guy, their all-star, Skip Lockwood. This guy's an interesting player. I know he'll become a really good reliever at a certain point. Skip Lockwood, Seattle Skippers, Seattle Skipjacks. Fan favorite here. He was a Seattle Pilot in 69. Another good reason why to keep him. Then he went to Milwaukee. So this was the performance he had in Milwaukee, pitching on 3 days rest. He'll not do that anymore. I'm not really concerned with that because this Mariner team had guys who could pitch on 3 days rest. Klein can, Woodson can, Lockwood did. All you need is like 2 guys to pitch on 3 days rest, and you can go with a 4-man rotation with days off. So I'm not really concerned with the fact that Lockwood can't pitch on 3 days rest anymore. It's more an evaluation, do you want to stick him in the bullpen? 72-73 in the rotation, 74-75 in the bullpen. But frankly, he's good everywhere. In 75, he's got a 109 whip. So yeah, Skip Lockwood, the all-star, might want to add. He's going to be a keeper. And now I'm looking at these guys here are players 1 and 2. I'm not really, the offense doesn't really excite me at all here. But these 2 pitchers I really like. And the 8th and final guy, Luke Walker. I'm not even going to go there with that nickname. Luke Walker, 65-74. Pirate. Got himself a World Series ring, I would assume, in 71. Speaking of that, let's go take a look at his postseason pitching. I'm always, yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, well, got knocked around against the Orioles for ERA of 40 and a half, but he got a ring. So there you are. That's probably why you don't remember Luke in that World Series. Okay, back to the analysis here. So here's Luke, 3.55 ERA in 159 innings. The next 3 years are, we'll make sure he's a Pirate in 72, so he can get waivers if we need to. Oh, he's not there. Let's see, extra player for the Pirates. Luke Walker. His card exists. Okay. So if you want, you can put him on waivers. Is he particularly? Yeah, he's just. Well, I don't know about this. Let me think. They have time to figure this out, do the Mariners. They don't have to get a decision now. But 72, he's got a 3.40 ERA and a 1.42 WHIP. If he's a lefty who gets lefties out, he deserves to be kept, because there's always a shortage of left-handed pitchers because we have 32 teams instead of 24. I kind of like him more than some of these other guys here. So for Luke Walker, we're going to put him in the keeper, but also with the question marks. I would say I'm going to put some exclamation points behind Klein and Lockwood. Those 2 guys will be kept. And then you need to keep 2 more. And your candidates would be Alou, Pepitone, Woods, and Walker. So right now it is 6-1-1. And that's not bad for a Seattle team to get better. Can they get better? Yeah, I mean, they can get better. They finished poorly. You expect Klein to get better. Lockwood looks like he'll get better. And frankly, losing the production, well, Pepitone that's a loss. Pepitone was a 300 hitting first baseman who could pick it in the field. He was a 2 defensive first baseman. He was a good player. The rest of these guys, Alou, Devannon, LaFay, Woods, and Walker, not so much. So I think the Mariners can get better. 6-1-1. What we're also doing is, and what often happens is, a lot of these keepers, they realize that it's a game of musical chairs, and each team can only keep 4, and eventually there's not enough room for all the keepers, and they end up going on waivers. And then some of the waiver guys have to move over into retirement because they're just not statistically good. So let's go back up year to date. We've now done 11 teams. And here is what the math should be, and this is what the math is. So we should have 44 keepers, 22 waves, and 22 retires. We're +5 on keepers, which is good, and -5 on retires. So there you are. That's exactly what you want. You want to have more guys available to play in the league in the blue column, because the red column, I don't have cards. They're gone. And so it means that I got to find cards, you know, even go into the talent pool that exists with these first edition sets, when Strat-O-Matic, you know, didn't print as many extra player cards with these first edition sets, such as Jerry Devannon. We mentioned that. Of course, the reissues, you have a different set of circumstances because you have plenty of it. You normally get, what, 27 cards per team, so you have a different level of constraints if you were playing those cards. You could go with bigger rosters. Instead of a 20-man roster, you could probably go to actually 24-man rosters or 25-man rosters if you have that many extra player cards out there. Well, that's it for the Seattle Mariners. Hope you're enjoying these Eliminating Mariner videos. Thanks for checking this out. We'll see you next time.